Good evening, everybody. Can I please have your attention, please? We'll get going here. A little bit, yeah. So firstly, thank you, everybody, for coming in this evening for the Course Improvement Project information session. This being sort of the first step in informing the membership about what the project is, what it entails, and sort of what we're planning here. So for tonight's agenda, we'll start out with a short presentation. This should only be about 15 or 20 minutes. We'll go through a project introduction, a rationale, so what's behind the project, how we think the golf course will play as we move through the construction periods. Obviously, we'll make some space there for questions at the end of that presentation. And then the second part of this will be an open floor session where we'll be around to answer questions about the panels we have on the side here that goes into a little bit more in-depth information about what we have up on screen. And we also have some physical irrigation fittings on the side here just to see what these things are in person, so you can ask questions about those as well. Just something to note as well, we have Mitchell from Past 6 Media up the back there filming today's session. That's all part of going towards a package that will go onto the website. We'll continually be adding information throughout the winter and communicating this project as we go, but then also that video is there for everybody that's not here tonight to hopefully be able to hear the same information and the questions that we have. So to introduce the project, it is first and foremost a large-scale irrigation system replacement. So we're considering that essential infrastructure upgrades to protect the golf course long term. So the original installation was in 1990. We're now at 35 years old for the system, and it is starting to show some inefficiencies and more frequent leaks and reliability issues. It does present a framework for us to attempt to complete as many course long-range master plan projects as we can and make the most of hole closures and to minimize disruption eventually. So trying to encompass as much into this project as we can, as much as our finances will allow. So for our green renovations that we're putting forward, we've prioritized 10, 12, 13, 16, and 17 greens, and then the full 17T complex, collectively referred to as the earthworks. Also taking the opportunity to finish off the fairway bunker renovations on 7, 8, 10, 17, and 18. And then the Haddon Creek restoration project has been on the list for a number of years. It is starting to gradually decline and fail as we go here. And that will be to look at the stone retaining walls and the bridges and restoring that. And the idea behind that is to do it at the same time as we close 12 to do that irrigation work and minimize disruption again. So we are proposing a 4-phase project, beginning in the spring of 2027 and completing in fall 2030. Phase 1 is an outlying year in that it is year-round work, and we'll go through kind of how we anticipate to be able to do that throughout the year. Looking at the irrigation main lines, so that's the first part of the network, and that will be course-wide, as well as number 12 green renovation, and that gives us, the membership, something tangible from the outset. Phases 2, 3, and 4 in those areas there, and I'll show a graphic a little bit later here that shows where those are on the golf course a little bit easier, but they will be the lateral irrigation, the earthworks, and the other projects being fairway bunkers and Haddon Creek, and the lateral irrigation, I'll show you what that actually is here in a second. But for those 3 phases, we're looking at fall and spring work only, and we're doing our best to avoid the core playing months in the summer. So the intent here is that the golf course will play as normal throughout the summer months. So we have a blow-up here of the irrigation master plan, and in red we have our main lines, so that's part of phase 1, and this is just one part of the golf course. But then when we talk about lateral irrigation, it's the individual sections coming off the main line that feed fairways, greens, tees, etc. All these sections are fed with valves. So when we do phase 1, we will put the main lines in, and where those black dots are, there will be the valves. And then phases 2, 3, and 4, it's coming back to do the lateral irrigation, which feeds all of the sprinkler head network on the golf course. The work periods we're defining as February 1st to April 30th for spring, September 1st to November 30th for the fall, and May 1st to August 31st for the summer. And that's the period we're trying to avoid doing the majority of our disruptive work. It comes with a key consideration, though, that dry weather is imperative to the success of this project. Once we start getting into wet, snowy, and frozen conditions, that creates damage to the golf course as we access it with larger equipment. It also can mean a subpar installation. We're obviously looking for as much longevity out of the irrigation system as we can. And that also feeds into the earthworks as well. To be able to shape and grade, it needs dry weather. So that's just one consideration to have when we talk about those periods that we're working on. So phase one, being our main lines, again, year-round work. We have color-coded, so this is the network throughout the entire golf course. Red is considered high disruption work where these sections of pipe cross fairways that will require temporary tees, temporary greens, potentially hole closures. Hence, these will be in the spring and fall. Everything in green is to the sides of holes or in between holes. Anticipated that the contractor can do these with minimal to no disruption to the regular golf routing, and hence we would look at doing this during the summer, the golf course playing as normal. And then yellow is somewhere in between where some of these areas there may be opportunities to continue to do this throughout the summer, but a lot of these probably do end up being done in the spring and fall.
What's blue?
Blue is the section we've already finished.
Okay.
So in the last winter, we did this section all the way through to the pump house, which is in here. And then in 2021, we did the main line in front of the first tee around to 18. So that section's already complete. Graphically, this is where our phases are on the golf course. So phase 2 in 2028 will be the top end. Phase 3 in 2029, the lower part of the golf course. And then phase 4 in 2030 being the middle part.
When you put in the main pipes, do you tie into the existing sprinkler heads?
That's a good question. In sections, yes. It'll be opportunistic as we go, depending on where we need it. The new main line will be installed deeper than the existing one. So in many cases, it will just go straight underneath. And the existing system will just continue to function as it is. That main line will be there ready to go once we get into our lateral zones. But in some places, it would make sense that when we drop a valve in on that new main line, that we can tie that into the existing system. So,
and the existing system, is it removed then?
No, it would stay in the ground.
Okay.
Yeah, so the previous 2-3 systems that we've had here in the past are all still in the ground. It doesn't make sense to try and take them out. It'll be hard to do. So they effectively just get decommissioned and they stay where they are. We would remove the heads, obviously, but yeah, the pipe itself and the wire stays in the ground. So we have 3 main site challenges for this project, which make it a complex and a challenging project for sure. We have rocky soils here, so our digging is a little bit more difficult than other sites. We do have bedrock outcrops that we've found as we've done irrigation, so that's something that we need to navigate. And then fairway slit drainage is a key part of infrastructure on the golf course that we need to protect when we do all this work. And to give you an idea of what that means, so this is an as-built of our slit drainage network in the top end. So this is hole 16, 17, and then the lower half of 18. In yellow is the extent of the slit drainage we have up there, and you can see on 17 it goes pretty much from tee all the way to green. And each of these little black lines here, that's the slit drainage. So they're 5 feet apart, they're about 13 inches deep, and all of our irrigation needs to go underneath these. So we have hundreds, thousands of these crossings potentially, which is a very complex part, and obviously very labor intensive that we need to navigate. Which looks like this. So this is sections that we've already done. There's 2 ways to do it. We can dig around and try and protect these, but the last thing we want to do is grab one of these slit drainers with an excavator bucket. If we grab and pull that, the damage downstream could be hard to find. So our preferred method is doing what we've done here. This is what we did at the start of the year on number 1, where we locate, cut, cap, do our trenching, do our installation, and then we reinstate at the end of that. So there's quite a lot of work that goes in just protecting these and putting them back in. We do have a lot of bedrock on the golf course. This is when we went across 15 for the BC Hydro upgrade, and we encountered this bedrock. From here down, it was just solid rock, and that's only about 12 inches below the surface. So that is obviously shallower than all of our irrigation, so we have some challenges to negotiate. We are scanning the property to find out where the majority of these are. It's not a perfect system. It's not going to show us where everything is, but it will help us try and avoid as many conflicts as we can, and that will help us bring our costs down as well. But it will be a challenge that we'll have to work through.
When you hit bedrock, you have to blast.
Blast or break. Yeah, so here they had a breaker, but that takes time. So blasting is obviously quicker, but then there's other,
Neighbors.
yeah, there's other aspects to that as well. So
Try not 13 and then you totally blast.
Yeah, so we had to do it behind 13, and that's probably what our method would be. So this is giving the scope of the irrigation work. Everything in blue is what's being proposed currently. All this is original since 1990. Everything in yellow has been upgraded since the original installation, but by the end of the project, we'll be nearing on 20 years old. So right now, it is considered additional and optional if the funds allow to go in and do this. There'd be a lot of benefits to doing that. That means if it were to do everything on the golf course, it would be all the same age for the subsequent re-replacement at a later date. We wouldn't have to come in again with a contractor and do it, but right now it doesn't quite fit within the budget. So as opportunities allow, we're trying to incorporate as much of this as we can. And then in green is the 14 green complex, first tee 18 green, putting green. That's all considered new enough that we wouldn't consider restoring or doing that at the same time. For the scope of our earthworks, again, everything in blue is what's being proposed, and everything in yellow is still a project on the course long-range master plan to complete at some point. The way we've prioritized this is everything in blue, the earthworks required to achieve the eventual goal there are significant enough that it would have to happen at the same time as the irrigation. Otherwise, if we were to do this at a later date, we would have to redo the irrigation when we did it. Everything in yellow is effectively an expansion that we can do without impacting what we do for the irrigation now. So a good example of that is 4, 9, and 15 green, where we can go in and install the irrigation to what the eventual footprint of we would want that green to be, and we can come back in and do that earthworks within the confines of that irrigation. We would do those in a similar manner to the way we expanded 18 green in 2022, where the green itself, for the most part, doesn't get lifted and regraded. It's just sections that get pushed out and made bigger to achieve more pin locations. That's effectively what we're trying to do. The same with the tees, and there are some that we can potentially do in-house, so we would be looking at that. But again, we can make additions to the irrigation system as we go through, but within the confines of what we do for the irrigation system. So our current irrigation system, we are currently experiencing more frequent leaks. This is leading to disruption on the golf course and system downtime as well, which can be damaging to turf. As an example, on 7 and 8 just this year, those 2 holes went without water for about 5 or 6 days, and that had its effect. So these are the things we're trying to minimize as much as we can. We are seeing increasing communication issues, which is reducing our reliability of the system as well. So we do have several heads out in the golf course that are currently not working that we're trying to troubleshoot, but they can be tricky to do. So we'll go through a couple of factors that input to that as well. But we can fix these things. We can get through, we can fix leaks, we can find communication breaks. Our team does an excellent job at getting in and out as much as we can to minimize that disruption on golf. But what we can't change is how many heads we necessarily have on the golf course, the limited control that we consider we have for in the modern era now, and also the undersized pipe that we consider it to be. So we see in some areas of the golf course, even though we have ample pressure, we're not seeing that delivered efficiently to the heads and having them perform the way we want. And a good example of that is down on 5, 6, 7, and 8. So this is the bottom part of the golf course. The water's moved downhill. We have plenty of pressure down here. But with what we consider now to be undersized pipe, we're not really seeing that being delivered effectively to the irrigation heads. And that's the impetus for a lot of this upgrade, where I'll get to that in a second. But for the eventual upgrade of the system here, installing larger pipe will help more efficiently use the water resource that we have. So there are external factors that do impact on the system, and this is just a product of the golf course being in the ground for as long as it has. So we have tree roots growing through wire bundles. Each one of those wires controls an irrigation head. When the roots go through like that, they can stretch, break, and they're trying to find where those wires go to ground is incredibly difficult. So that's an issue we're currently experiencing. That's left side of 6, that photo. The middle one just becomes a maintenance trouble to try and actually dig up these heads. We have to maintain them effectively. And we're actually seeing tree roots now break pipe, and this is down on 8T just this year. So the new system will be incorporating larger pipe, also looking to use more substantial fittings that are intended to last longer than what we have in the ground currently. So larger pipe actually slows our water movement down. It reduces stress on the system and helps us increase our efficiency and actually deliver that pressure to the heads for better performance. we would get improved communication, coverage, and control. So adding more heads to cover the area we have. And control meaning that each one of those heads can be individually controlled, so we can be a lot more target specific with where we apply our water. Yeah.
Yeah. In the summertime when it's hot, I see some of your crews out watering the greens.
Yeah.
Will that still be required with this system?
That will still be part of it. We hope that on the fairways that we can try and minimize that as much as possible. We'll be able to make our general moisture levels a lot more consistent, a lot more even. It'll still be a factor on the greens. Part of the reason that we do that hand watering is so we can really pull the water away and have them as dry and as firm as we can. And that is something that we will try and look at next year to be better at. We're always looking at ways that we can minimize how that disrupts the membership, and we understand that's not the most ideal thing to see our staff out there doing that. But they're there to keep the greens as healthy as they can and as dry as they can.
Well, I was just wondering if you could reduce the amount of labor required because you could automatically put on the sprinklers.
It'll mean that we redirect our labor. So we won't be doing it on trying to rectify things in the system. We can redirect that to actually increasing the performance and targeting that and really dialing that system in. So, yeah.
Excuse me, Nick.
Yep.
Will the new system have less water being sprayed into the bunkers overnight?
That's a good question. It won't necessarily be the case. We still have to water the surrounds. It's not as controlled as that. So yeah, answer is not necessarily, I guess. Yeah. But the overall goal of the system, being more targeted, is to be more responsible with the water that we have, effectively.
Do you have a contractor that will do this job yet, Nick?
We do. So we're currently in the works of speaking with a contractor, and we haven't got a contract in place yet, but we're developing towards that. What we've got to right now is that we've issued and received back a signed letter of intent. So that is that the contractor has scheduled this work on the given time frame to come in and effectively do the work. So our next step now is to obviously move to a member vote, and should that be successful, then we're working towards a contract with that contractor.
And do you plan on being around here for the duration of this development?
I do, yeah. It's an exciting project. It's almost once in a lifetime for a superintendent. So, yeah. So that will be my goal. So moving on to the disruption, and this is just one example of how we expect to be able to move through the golf course and do this work. So again, just one example, and it's worth noting that this is a dynamic situation where those two holes may not necessarily be always closed. We may have one hole closed and 17 open, et cetera. It's always going to be changing and moving, but this just gives an indication of how we intend to do it. So when we would be doing the work on 2 and 3, those two holes would be closed. Golf traffic would move from 1 to 4T. And then what we're looking to do to facilitate an 18-hole routing as much as we can is incorporate alternate holes on 17 and 18. With the goal of being a minimum of 16 holes open at any given time. And this is primarily in the spring and the fall. Again, the summer period, we're aiming to be our 18-hole golf course on its normal routing. That is the objective. So these alternate holes would really be just to be used in the spring and fall. And what that looks like, so 17 would play as a 300-yard par 4 to the temporary green, which we're looking at next year to expand the size and make something a bit more of a target to actually play to, considering that this will be something that we use for a number of years. Improve on what we have there right now for a temporary green. And then the regulation green would play as a 110-yard par 3 from 18 gold tee. Similarly, 18 would be a 340-yard par 4 with the installation of a temporary green up there next year as well. And then a 175-yard par 3 to the regulation green to finish off. And we would, once the project is finished, we'd reinstate what's currently there on 18 back to what it currently is right now. So that temporary green would only be there for the use of the project. And lastly, with all of this being put forward, our two primary guidelines for this are to minimize member disruption as much as possible. It is a big project. There is a lot of work going on. It's hard to completely remove that, but that is part of what our thinking is going forward. And also aligning this to the scope of the 10-year capital financial plan. So recognizing that the club can afford so much, and that really has defined what the scope of this project is. We do have high-level numbers from the contractor, and we're working towards detailed numbers as we speak. And that will be issued in due time once we have those numbers appropriately finalized and be part of a larger financial package for how this project should be funded. Yep.
Taking into account the number of times we'll have one or two holes out of play, has consideration been given to how that will affect the recording of scores for handicapping purposes?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's part of the details that we'll have to figure out. With majority, I would assume, Mike, that would be kept to May 1st to August 31st when we have the golf course in its normal routing. Yeah.
Would it be a fixed price contract you're going for, or would this be subject to cost overruns and things like that?
That's a good question. Currently looking for a cost-plus contract. So basically what the project is what we pay for, and really working towards that with the contractor. We're confident that who we have has very good ways of tracking their work, and we'll have annual check-ins each phase to make sure that we have repricing every time we go through, so we know what we're in for in terms of the club, in terms of what that looks like for each year. But significant effort has been done on the 10-year capital plan, which shows that the club can afford the work based on club initiation dues. So that's the current plan for financing the project, and with target project costs will be communicated with eventually a member vote early next year.
With current materials and technology, what kind of lifespan is this new system likely to have?
That's a really good question. So the current system right now, based off what's in the ground, was kind of expected to last 25, maybe 30 years, and we've extended well beyond that. It's performed very well. With the components we're looking to put in the ground right now, we're aiming for about 40 years. So these are very arbitrary numbers. There's a lot of factors that go into that, but that's what we hope to be able to target. So. Yep.
And is that warranty or 2-year?
No, there won't be a warranty. There'll be warranties on certain aspects of the system, but in terms of parts and pipe, not a 40-year warranty, no.
Yeah, exactly. Dad.
Okay, that's it for this part. Obviously, if you still have some more questions.
Great job, Nick.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that.
Design the whole irrigation system. Do you have engineering work done?
Yeah, it's Fredericks McGuire. They're our irrigation consultant.
Okay.
So they've designed the irrigation master plan.
Hey Nick, very nice presentation, thank you. So if we started in spring of 27, what would be the potential like mid-season disruptions, if any? Like would there be potentially holes out of place in 2027, 2028, 2029, 30, like in the summertime? I'm not talking shoulder season, we're talking core season.
Yeah, so core season, we're aiming to avoid that.
Okay, so there potentially, in best case scenario, there'd be no core season, you'd have all 18 holes open.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Could you explain what would happen if we didn't do anything? Like, I'm just wondering if we just let the system run out
Yeah.
and just milk it to the end.
Exactly.
So like,
Yeah.
I mean, in my view, we get dry weather for what, 60 days max?
Yeah.
And so could we not just sort of fumble through for 10 years? I mean, I'm just asking.
We could continue to fix what we have. Like I said, our team does an excellent job getting in and getting these things done. We are seeing that increase year on year. We're seeing more.
What's our cost right now on annual just to maintain what we have, sorry?
Roughly around $200K a year in parts, labor.
And the new system, what, 15 million?
Total, including.
Forgetting the bunkers, because I think forgetting that because that's a separate.
Yeah, the earthworks and the irrigation are around 15 million with
So 15
healthy
million.
contingency. Yes.
So if you spent say 500 grand a year for 10 years,
Yeah. There's
and
part.
then going
yeah.
to spend 50 or 20 million at that time, right? Should obviously increase.
Yeah. So we'll keep increasing. But part of it as well is yes, we can continue to repair what we have, but we're looking to improve as well. So we're going to keep being able to produce the conditions that we do.
Right.
And the longer we go, the less likely we have that reliable system there to do what we wanted to do. So we do. It's unlikely we're going to see a catastrophic failure out there. It's more that we'll see a gradual decline, and then we'll have areas of the golf course that slowly, maybe the turf isn't quite as good as we want it to be. When we have areas of the golf course that go longer without water, than we ideally like. So we already see that, like I said, on 7 and 8 this year, we had 6 days there for those 2 holes, and we saw some damage from it. Ideally, we don't see that happen, but potentially that could expand to other parts of the golf course, and that's what we're trying to protect.
So is the option to do all the other work except for the bottom side, whatever you call it?
Well, that provides the framework to do it all, but we can do all the earthworks, we can have the greens, renovated in there, but until the infrastructure is in place to protect it, we find that that's the most important thing first.
And what's the cost to do everything other than the waterworks? What would be
Including,
the approximate cost to do the greens and the bunkers?
yeah, so we've costed the irrigation and the greens and tees together at about 15 million. The bunkers are about 1 million,
Okay.
and it had increased about 2.7.
Will
What's
it-
High
two
level
points?
numbers, 2.7 to do that increase.
And will that be all the bunkers done?
All done, all
All
bunkers
of
are
the
done.
bunkers are done?
Yeah,
Yeah.
all done.
All, every hole, yeah.
When you redo a green, renovate it, I assume that the green was out of play. But is it a total reconfiguration, or is it just sectional?
For the ones that we're proposing here, it's a full renovation. Yes,
Full renovation?
full renovation. So,
Like 14?
Who's designing the
like,
new green?
sorry,
Who is designing the new green?
that's character design. Yeah.
Will you have enough turf?
Yes, so that's what we built down there by the by our maintenance facility. So that new nursery green there, that is big enough now to facilitate the expansion of that green. So we're growing that turf in right now.
Will it be all new turf?
No, we reutilize what's on the greens.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So we'll in our process there, we strip the existing greens, store that sod like we did for the nursery there, and bring it all back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell from the drawing, but when you redo 13, will it be made a little more level and will it be going to the right? I couldn't tell what's happens there.
Yeah, so the majority of the green actually extends further to the left. So the central ridge stays basically to keep the character there, but creates 2 distinct sections of the green that we can now pin. So obviously the left-hand side becomes very difficult to put a pin there. So the majority of the expansion is back that way. We have a little bit sort of back and to the right as well, and fractionally deeper, but the character, the intent with most of these renovations is to keep the existing character there, but change the grade such that we can get more pins and make them more playable with some speeds.
Because you're almost doubling or more than doubling the size of it?
13 gets, or about twice the size.
So all that's up on the walls with your plan?
Yeah, so here,
I'll still-
so I invite you to come up and have a look at this as well,
Yeah.
but as we go through, the increase in size and an increase in pinnable space that we have for each green renovation is up here, so.
So that bank,
It's an easy
the bank on the back, will it be about the same grade or will it be steeper and shorter?
It'll effectively stay the same, yeah.
I was
We're
hoping-
more great, yeah.
I was hoping it's gonna be steeper and the ball just rolled down. We're gonna pave it.
Nick, is there a limit to the amount of grade change you can make in these greens? Some of them have sunk quite dramatically and you've lost big chunks of green. Will you have an unlimited ability to change the grade as much as you want?
Yeah, that's the reason for a full renovation, so we feel that,
Why don't you take a second and walk us through the renovation of the greens?
yeah, 100%.
Can I ask this question before you do that,
Yeah.
though, Nick? Is that when we redid 14, we tried to replicate the look as it was built in 1937.
Yep.
Obviously, there are some greens that you're expanding, so we're gonna have some new nuances to that. But the greens that you may not be expanding so much, you're gonna try to keep the same, for example, 15. Is it still gonna be two-tiered, or?
Yeah, that's effectively the way we're trying to do it. So a similar character, so it doesn't change necessarily how how it looks, but creating more space. So what has been thought over time is that, I'm trying to see if there's a good example here. From back there, 16 is probably a really good example where the green now is very much very circular in many ways. What happens over time, we find all these shapes sort of constrict and become a little bit more like that. So originally we think the greens are a lot squarer like this, so the whole point is to really kind of bring them back out to what we thought they were originally were. Okay.
So you've talked about renovation of greens, and then it also said expansion. So some of them are getting bigger, but I know it's 4 and 9. Are there drawings for that?
There are drawings for that, yeah. So these are all renovations, and 4, 9, and 15 are expansions. So expansion means kind of what we did to number 18 back in 2022, where the main green stays the same. We don't lift the entire thing and fully renovate it. We're effectively just pushing that out and adding to that green, expanding that green. We think we can achieve the end result of having more pinnable space without having to go and rip up the entire green effectively. So we're just pushing back the corners in those areas. 9 being probably the one that's the next on our priority list to achieve some front pin locations. I recognize that's a desire to do, and that expansion basically comes out the front. The whole back 2/3 of the green is untouched. We bring that expansion out the front there, and if we were to do the irrigation now and yet later, we can do that within the confines of what's being proposed for the irrigation.
So would we lose there's sort of a false front on that.
The idea would be to keep the false front and that same character, but then a distinct front area to put pins. So bring that whole thing forward and stretching that out to give space for that.
Would that be the same on 10 with that front area?
Yeah, exactly.
Quick fall front.
Yeah. So hopefully everybody can see these from back there, but everything in red. So the heat scan here is what we use to try and pin the greens on a weekly basis. Everything in red is where we can't put pins. Everything in green we can do it all the time. Everything yellow and orange is sometimes, so more shorter seasons. You can see here on 10 we've lost a lot of that green, so that whole false front, everybody knows it's not pinnable. But the idea here is that we would have 2 distinct tiers of that green that we would see. It wouldn't be so sharp. It would be fairly replicable what the green currently looks like, but with an actual front section there, still with a false front, but more abbreviated and pushed out, so we can still get some pins there and actually have a red pin. Similarly for 12 green, the idea is to keep the character of what's there, but softening the slopes. Yeah, soften the slopes, we bring it out, but creating 4 distinct corners so we can have a lot more variety in our pin locations. 13, as we kind of briefly mentioned already, that central spine still stays there. It's a characteristic part of the green. We don't want to lose that. But having the 2 areas of that green to actually pin, whereas we're kind of very limited what we can do right now. 16 continues to have the false front, so we're coming from this way. Continues to have the false front here, at the very front, but again abbreviated like on 10, but with 4 distinct corners of that green that we can then pin. A lot more variety. And then 17 is a little bit more subtle, but it would effectively mean that we can have more right side pins behind that bunker. The majority of that green, yeah. But we retain that left hand side slope, which is character of that green, but with a lot of other areas we can put pins that are a lot more friendly once we get our green speeds up to some speeds. Yes.
Just see if I can still.
Next, there was a thought on 13 there's a thought on 13 to bring, as you're facing the green, to bring that green a little closer to the hazard for that.
Yeah. So I'll try and point out here what the existing green is. So the existing green is about here on our map. So it does expand quite a ways to the left there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So what about egress then?
That'll be something we have to check, and we'll have to balance that. So expanding as far as we can while still giving enough space for traffic, because that's an issue in other areas. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll be around here.
Yeah, great job.